Tantor Audio presents The Disaster Artist, My Life Inside the Room, the greatest bad movie ever made. By Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell. Narrated by Greg Sestero. Joe Gillis. Maybe it's a little long, maybe there's some repetitions, but you're not a professional writer. Norma Desmond. I wrote that with my heart. Joe Gillis. Sure you did. That's what makes it great. Sunset Boulevard, 1950. I always thought it'd be better to be a fake somebody than a real nobody. Tom Ripley, The Talented Mr. Ripley, 1999. This play can be played without any age restriction. It will work if the chemistry between all the characters makes sense. Human behavior and betrayal applies to all of us. It exists within ourselves. You love somebody, do you? What is love? You think you have everything, but you don't have anything. You have to have hope and spirit, be an optimist. But can you handle all your human behavior or others' behavior? You don't want to be good, but great. Director's note, The Room, 2001, by Tommy P. Wiseau. Author's note. Imagine a movie so incomprehensible that you find yourself compelled to watch it over and over again. You become desperate to learn how, if on earth, it was conceived. Who made it, and for what purpose? This book is about what might be the world's most improbable Hollywood success story. At its center is an enigmatic filmmaker who claims, among many other things, to be a vampire. This man speaks with a thick European accent, the derivation of which he won't identify. He also refuses to reveal his age or the origins of his seemingly vast fortune. His name is Tommy Wiseau, and the film he wrote, directed, produced, starred in, and poured $6 million into is a disastrous specimen of cinematic hubris called The Room. The Room is, despite its ostensibly simple plot, perhaps the most casually surreal film ever made. To put it simply, The Room doesn't work in any way films have evolved to work over the last century of filmmaking. It's filled with red herrings, shots of locations that are never visited, and entire conversations comprised of non sequiturs. It is, essentially, one gigantic plot hole. For many, experiencing The Room is both wildly exhilarating and supremely dislocating. The film engenders an obsessive fascination, instantly luring you into its odd, convoluted world. Tommy Wiseau intended The Room to be a serious American drama, a cautionary tale about love and friendship, but it became something else entirely. A perfectly literal comedy of errors. Yet since its 2003 release, The Room has spread across the United States and now the world with viral unstoppability. Many believe that The Room's unfathomable incompetence elevates it to something like bizarro world brilliance. It's revered for its inadequacy and its peerless ability to induce uncontrollable laughter from beginning to end. It may be the most wonderfully terrible 1 hour and 39 minutes ever committed to celluloid. And I was in it. In 1998, as a 19-year-old aspiring actor, I enrolled in an acting class in San Francisco. It was there that I met Tommy Wiseau, an encounter that had an unforeseeable impact on the direction of my life. Tommy and I were opposites in every conceivable way, though we shared a common dream, a career in entertainment. This chance meeting inspired a journey neither I nor anyone else could have imagined. This book is a personal account of that journey, the one that led to the phenomenon that is The Room. It is, I hope, a tale of heart, sadness, and blind artistic courage. The story it tells is as much about the power of believing in oneself as it is about the perils that can arise in conquering self-imposed limitations. The conversations and events depicted herein are true and have been rendered as I recall them. The material in this book, not derived from my observations and experience, is the documented result of on-the-record interviews with Tommy and other persons concerned. I have also used as reference the room's original script, photographs, and hours of behind-the-scenes production footage. The footage in particular was used to accurately describe scenes related to the filming process. Minimal liberties have been taken to streamline the narrative. In combining and condensing some conversations or events, I have done so with the hope of maintaining their integrity while also accurately capturing their mood and spirit. Upon its debut, The Room was a spectacular bomb, pulling in all of $1,800 during its initial 2-week Los Angeles run. It wasn't until the last weekend of the film's short release that the seeds of its eventual cultural salvation were planted. While passing a movie theater, 2 young film students named Michael Rousselet and Scott Gardner noticed a sign on the ticket booth that read, "No refunds." Below the sign was this blurb from a review: "Watching this film is like getting stabbed in the head." They were sold. The Room mesmerized Rousselet and Gardner. They rallied others to experience the film, and soon enough a cult was born. These young men and women created many of The Room's now famous audience participation rituals, and for several years served as the vanguard of an unofficial underground fan club. They simply wouldn't let the film die, going so far as to camp outside one theater to demand its continuance. The combination of their enthusiasm and Tommy's hapless guerrilla marketing made the film an LA in-joke and an entertainment industry curiosity. Before long, the cream of Hollywood's comedy community developed a particular affinity for Tommy's film, hosting private room parties and parodying it in their work. Slowly, the film's cult status gained momentum, and by 2009, The Room had entered the mainstream. It was featured in Entertainment Weekly, Time, and Harper's, and covered on CNN, Fox News, and ABC World News. It also began airing annually on national television. Following the media blitz, The Room emerged as a top-selling independent film, and to this day it screens to sold-out crowds worldwide. The magic of The Room derives from one thing. No one interprets the world the way Tommy Wiseau does. He is the key to The Room's mystery, as well as the engine of its success. Tommy had always predicted his film would become a classic, embraced worldwide, a notion that could not have seemed less likely. Yet he was right. The Room became every bit the blockbuster that Tommy had envisioned, though not, of course, in the way he envisioned. Despite The Room's reputation as the Citizen Kane of bad movies, Tommy continues to believe that his is the greatest film of all time. In the end, the phenomenon of The Room has allowed me to realize that, in life, anything is possible. The Room is a drama that is also a comedy, that is also an existential cry for help, that is finally a testament to human endurance. It has made me reconsider what defines artistic success or failure. If art is expression, can it fail? Is success simply a matter of what one does with failure? Many of us want to embark on a creative life and never take the chance, too stifled by our self-awareness or fear to try. All the odds were against Tommy Wiseau becoming a filmmaker, yet something pushed him to go for it. Something powerful enough to inspire a global phenomenon. 10 years after wrapping The Room and living my life in its strange wake, I realize how much the experience has changed me, and how grateful I am for that. By now, millions of people have stood before the great, mysterious, closed door that is The Room, peering through its keyhole with a mixture of joy and bewilderment. My hope is that I have unlocked this door and welcomed everyone at long last inside. Greg Sestero, South Pasadena, California, October 2012. 1. Oh, hi, Mark. Betty Schaefer. I'd always heard you had some talent. Joe Gillis. That was last year. This year I'm trying to earn a living. Sunset Boulevard. Tommy Wiseau has always been an eccentric dresser, but on a late summer night in 2002, he was turning the heads of every model, weirdo, transvestite, and facelift artist in and around Hollywood's Palm restaurant. People couldn't stop looking at him. I couldn't stop looking at him. Even today, a decade later, I still can't unsee Tommy's outfit. Nighttime sunglasses, a dark blazer as loose and baggy as rain gear, sand-colored cargo pants with pockets filled to capacity. Was he smuggling potatoes? A white tank top, clunky Frankenstein combat boots, and 2 belts. Yes, 2 belts. The first belt was at home in its loops. The second draped down and back to cup Tommy's backside, which was, he always claimed, the point. It keeps my ass up. Plus it feels good. And then there was Tommy himself. Short and muscular, his face as lumpy and white as an abandoned draft of a sculpture. His enormous snow shovel jaw. His long, thick, impossibly black hair, seemingly dyed in magic marker ink, and currently sopping wet. Moments before we walked in, Tommy had dumped a bottle of Arrowhead water over his head to keep this poofy stuff from afflicting his considerable curls. He had also refused to let the Palms valet park his silver SL 500 Mercedes-Benz, worried the guy would fart in his seat. At this point, I'd known Tommy for almost half a decade. Tommy and I looked more like Marvel Comics nemeses than people who could be friends. I was a tall, sandy blonde Northern California kid. Tommy, meanwhile, appeared to have been grown somewhere dark and moist. I knew exactly where Tommy and I fit in among the Palms' mixture of Hollywood sharks, minnows, and tourists. I was 24 years old, a minnow like Tommy. That meant we had at least 30 minutes to wait for a table. Upon entering the restaurant, I could see various diners consulting their mental Rolodexes, trying to place Tommy. Gene Simmons after 3 months in the Gobi Desert? The Hunchback of Notre Dame following corrective surgery? An escaped Muppet? The drummer from Rat? I don't wait in the line, Tommy said, speaking to me over his shoulder. He marched up to the Palms hostess. I kept my distance, as I always did at times like this, and waited for the inevitable moment in which Tommy spoke, and the person to whom he was speaking tried to make geographical sense of his pronunciation, which sounded like an Eastern European accent that had been hit by a Parisian bus. The hostess asked Tommy if he had a reservation. Oh, yes, he said. We have table reservation. And what's the name? She said, slightly sarcastically, but only slightly, because who knew whether Rat was on the verge of releasing a greatest hits album? Her job required carefully hedging one's fame-related bets. Ron, Tommy said. She checked her list. Sorry, she said, tapping her pencil on the page. There's no Ron here. Oh, sorry, Tommy said. It's Robert. She looked down. There's no Robert here either. Tommy laughed. Wait, I remember now. Try John. The hostess found the name John near the bottom of her list. John, she said, party of 4? Yes, Tommy said, summoning me over to bring him one party member closer to accuracy. I don't know who John Party of 4 actually was, but the hostess snagged a wine menu and began walking us to our table. I followed Tommy and the hostess through the Palm's dim interior and looked at the dozens of movie star caricatures that lined its walls. There was Jack Nicholson, Betty Davis, O.J. Simpson, which made me wonder, what exactly did you have to do to get banished from the wall of the Palm? I noticed some starry faces sitting at the tables too. Well, maybe not starry, but mid-size astral phenomena. Sports broadcaster Al Michaels, colleague to my beloved John Madden, Sports Illustrated swimsuit model Josie Moran, the co-host on our local ABC News. There were also lots of faces unknown to me but obviously connected. These mostly middle-aged men and women talk show business at conversational levels and real show business sotto voce. The waiters were all older, beefy guys who smelled of expensive aftershave and had big, white, manicured nails. They were such smooth operators. They almost managed to convince you it didn't matter that you weren't famous. The air in the Palm was very expensive. Everything, other than the food, tasted like money. "Excuse me," Tommy said indignantly after the hostess showed us to our table. "Excuse me, but no, I don't sit here. I want booth." Tommy always insisted on a booth. "Sir, our booths are reserved." But Tommy was nothing if not unrelenting. I think the hostess figured she had two options: give Tommy a booth, or call animal control to trank him. Through a combination of lying, grandstanding, and bullying, Tommy and I were now seated in a booth in the nicest section of the Palm. As soon as Tommy sat down, he flagged someone down and said he was starving and ready to order. "I don't work here," the person said. Whenever Tommy is in a restaurant, he always orders a glass of hot water. I've never seen a waiter or waitress do anything but balk at the request. Here's how the Palm's waiter handled it. "I'm sorry, did you say a glass of—" "Tommy, hot water, yes, this is what I'm saying." "A lemon maybe, or—" "Look, why you give me a hard time? Do I speak Chinese? This is simple request, my God, are you tipsy or something? And more bread with raisin stuff." We were at the Palm to celebrate. The following morning, official production would begin on The Room, a film Tommy had conceived, written, produced, cast, and was now directing and set to star in. If you'd known Tommy as long as I had, the beginning of The Room's production was a miracle of biblical significance. I'd worked on the film with him on and off since its inception. My most recent and intense job on the film was working as Tommy's line producer. When we began, I had no idea what a line producer was. Neither did Tommy. Basically, I was doing anything that needed to be done. I scheduled all auditions, meetings, and rehearsals, ran the casting sessions, helped find equipment, and, most challenging, made sure Tommy didn't sabotage his own film. In a sense, I was his outside world translator, since no one knew him better than I did. I was also in charge of writing the checks that were flying out the door of Wiseau Films like doves in search of dry land. For all this, Tommy was paying me a decent wage, plus perks, which was what Tommy called food. With Tommy's vanity project about to begin, my plan was to walk into my $8 an hour retail job at French Connection the next day and quit. I hoped never again to fool something I wasn't going to wear myself. "So," Tommy said, taking off his sunglasses. His eyes were red with veiny lightning. "We are in production. How do you feel?" He started to wrangle his hair into a scrunchy-secured ponytail. "It's great," I said. Tommy was looking at me directly, which didn't happen that often. He was sensitive about his left eyelid, which drooped noticeably, and he rarely held anyone's gaze. When he did talk to someone, he tried to hold his face to the left, which he thought was his best angle. "Are you nervous, little bit?" Tommy asked. "For what?" "For big day tomorrow." "Should I be nervous?" He shrugged. As we ate, we talked a little more, and things in the Palm started to wind down. 9 p.m. is, however, Tommy's noon. So as the palm became emptier and more sedate, Tommy grew more and more energetic. I had to get home for a number of reasons, not the least of which was my girlfriend, Amber. She wasn't a fan of Tommy's and hated it when I wasn't with her on her nights off. Tommy leaned forward. He'd never touched his hot water. "What do you think now about the room?" I told Tommy what I thought about the room several times, which was that the script didn't make any sense. Characters' motivations changed from scene to scene, important plot points were raised and then dropped, and all of the dialogue sounded exactly the same, which is to say, it sounded exactly like Tommy's unique understanding of the English language. But nothing I said would ever change his view of the room, so what did it matter? I thought the film offered a fascinating glimpse into Tommy's life, but I couldn't imagine anyone anywhere would be able to decipher it, let alone pay money to see it. "You know what I think about the room," I said. "Why are you asking me this now?" "Because tomorrow is very important day. It will go to the history. Touchdown. No one can take away our top of mountain day. We begin to shoot." He smiled and leaned back. "I can't believe this, if you really think about it." "Yeah, congratulations. You deserve it." Tommy looked at me, his face slack. "This yeah is not convincing. You are not happy?" I was happy. I was also, at that moment, distracted. I'd accidentally caught eyes with a young brunette across the restaurant, which I think she mistakenly took as an invitation. She and her blonde friend were checking out our table, and now, suddenly, they were coming over. Dressed up, both of them. Heels, both of them. Young, both of them. The blonde woman looked like an agent's assistant, maybe meeting her slightly racier, less securely employed friend for a night of whatever they felt like they could get away with. They had sparkly eyes and hello there smiles, and were holding half-drunk glasses of wine which were clearly not their first drinks of the evening. They motioned for Tommy and me to scoot in so they could join us. "Just wanted to come over and say hey," the brunette said. "Thought you were cute." We awkwardly shook hands, introduced ourselves. Greg, Tommy, Miranda, Sam. Our booth smelled like it had been hit with a precision strike of apples and vanilla perfume. Conversation, haltingly, began. "Yeah, the food was great. Oh, that's so funny." My bare arm was touched once, twice. Tommy was glowering, backing away into some small, irritated corner of his mind. He stayed there for a bit, before out of nowhere, he asked the girls, "So what do you do besides drink?" They exchanged a quick, decisive look. I could almost see the mischief in their eyes flicker out at the same time. "Excuse me?" Miranda said. Tommy sighed. "I asked, what do you do? Any job or anything? What do you offer besides the vodka?" Miranda looked into her wine glass questioningly, and then over at me. There was nothing I could say. Miranda and Sam stood up. "Yes, well, it was nice meeting you, Greg." "Yeah, thanks, you too. We'll see you around, sure. Take care then. Absolutely." After they left, I looked at Tommy and shook my head. "Girls are crazy," he said. The waiter arrived and asked to see Tommy's identification. This wasn't unusual. Our bill was huge, and Tommy was paying with his credit card, which wasn't reading. Tommy, however, refused to show the waiter identification, eventually announcing, "I have a right under law of California." Then the waiter made it clear to Tommy that the Los Angeles Police Department was only a phone call away. Tommy got angry and allowed the waiter to glimpse his driver's license beneath a murky plastic lining in his wallet. The waiter said he was sorry, but Tommy had to remove the identification. "Very disrespectful," Tommy said. "I'm sorry, but you're completely off the wall." The waiter finally acceded. Tommy stormed out. I lingered behind, apologizing to every member of the staff I saw. I'd become accustomed to this. It was how I paid for our dinners. Outside the Palm, we waited for the valet to drive Tommy's Benz around. He'd apparently forgotten about the dangers of valet farting. I dreaded the look on the valet's face when Tommy tipped him. On a $100 dinner tab, Tommy would often tip $5. Sometimes the recipients of Tommy's tips would come back to him with an air of wounded dignity and ask, "Have I done something wrong?" And Tommy would say, "Be happy with what you have." Tommy must have been feeling a little guilty about what went down inside the Palm, because the valet didn't seem scandalized by the tip Tommy gave him. We headed east on Santa Monica. Traffic was light, but Tommy was nevertheless driving at a standard speed of 20 miles below the legal limit. I wondered sometimes what drivers on the freeways of greater Los Angeles thought when they passed Tommy. Expecting to see some centenarian crypt keeper behind the wheel, they instead saw a Cro-Magnon profile, wild black hair, and Blade Runner sunglasses. Coincidentally, at the first stoplight, Miranda and Sam from the Palm pulled up beside us. I looked over and smile waved. They, of course, burst out laughing. Tommy powered down the passenger window and said, as loud as he could, "Ha! Ha 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 ha! Ha ha ha!" Horrified, they pulled away from the stoplight as though from a terrible accident. I sank into my seat. This was another way in which I passed the time in Tommy's company, trying to disappear. Tommy looked over at me and said, "You look great, by the way. Like Spartacus." Tommy loved movies, though I wasn't sure he'd seen anything made after 1965. I think he thought I looked like Spartacus because for the first time in my life I was wearing a beard. While working on the casting of The Room, which took months longer than it should have, I had let the beard, along with my relationship, just sort of go. Though Amber hated it, I'd grown to like the beard. There was something invigoratingly Viking about it. "Spartacus?" I said. At that point I had never seen Spartacus, but I gathered Tommy's observation was accurate. A few years later I finally watched it. Spartacus does not have a beard. The car began to roll forward again. "So listen now," Tommy said. "This is very important. You have to do The Room." I am doing The Room." "This is not what I mean. I mean you must act in The Room, perform. You have to play Mark." We'd been over this many, many times. Tommy claimed that he'd written the part of Mark, who in the script betrays his best friend Johnny, Tommy's character, by sleeping with Johnny's future wife Lisa, for me. I was never sure how to take this. In the 4 years that I'd known Tommy, he'd come to my aid on numerous occasions. If it weren't for Tommy, I never would have moved to Los Angeles. Now he was making a film that meant the world to him. So I was happy to help him. But act in it? That was an entirely different level of obligation. I knew what good films look like. The Room was not going to be a good film. It was probably going to require divine intervention just for Tommy to finish the thing. This was to say nothing of the fact that the role of Mark had already been cast. "What do you think about this?" Tommy asked. "I think," I said, "that Don is already playing Mark." The actor's name was Dan, but Tommy always called him Don, so I had to call him that too. Tommy was quiet for a block. Gobs of oncoming headlight filled the car and withdrew. We were now traveling 10 miles below Tommy's standard 20 miles below the speed limit, all while he veered into other lanes. Men on bicycles were passing us. The cars not honking at us should have been. "What if we do something?" Tommy said. "What if we give you very good money?" We? The leadership structure of Wiseau Films was simple. Tommy was the founder, president, chief executive officer, treasurer, legal department, brand manager, administrative assistant under the pseudonym of John, phone answerer, and mail opener. He claimed...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?